the patience and the courage to stay here. I would really, really ask you to come a little bit forward, because then it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit more friendly. And I would really like to have a discussion. And if the people are very far away, and maybe you also get warmer if you move a little bit together. So I think it's, thanks a lot. Okay, we'll have now the debate. But before the debate, there's also a very nice moment, because I will ask Martina to present this very, very, very beautiful book and to say some things about it.
Thank you. I think it's a beautiful moment to introduce the book as a somehow print-out version of the Bright Cityscape program, especially after the conversations. No, it's okay. I think it's fine. Before going into the book, I think the presentation that we saw, starting from Norbert, Saskia, and Joseph, I think in a way the book tries, in general the program, tries to merge different worlds. In fact, it starts with an introduction that speaks about how conversation is at the center of the program. And the idea of creating a printed version of the program is indeed to keep the conversation open. Together with the book, we also developed along the program an online platform that functions as a repository of the experiments, but also as a place for giving a bit of a backstage of what happened along the year, and also a place to slow down a sec, because exhibitions are a moment of opening publicly the work of the designers, but also the research, but in a way not necessarily is the only media for disseminating the knowledge, and also is not the only media for really enjoying the processes that accompany the production of such a program. So while the book is something that you can keep it and open it up when you have time, as much as the online platform, so it's also a way of slowing down the production of content and give it at the right time to experience it. And we decided to have a really bold cover, as you can see. It's indeed a mirror that takes also as the first exhibition we did, which was opening up the program of the Bright Cityscape, was called Mirroring the Ecosystem. And the last one that also was like turned signals. So we decided that the cover of the book, in a way, should also come out from a really technical, like it should carry the technicality, but also the fact of being entertaining in a way that you can reflect the surrounding, but also in a way, mirroring potentially the knowledge that is in it, with it depending where you go with the surrounding. And the idea of the book is something that, as I was saying, is not necessarily a final, maybe you, thank you. It's something that carries a bit like one of the most important elements of this program. As we always said, research, and we also said in the talks before, research, fascination, ideas, they continue. So in our practice, we all build step by step. But in a way, in real life, there are deliveries, there are events, there are moments in which we need to share. And this is a bit the nature of the book, which is a collection of conversations, of the exhibitions, of projects, of reflections, that of the pedagogical program we had, of the different spaces that we crossed, all the factory that we visited, the beautiful report and the data that Norbert and the team developed, and the visualization. So it's, in a way, a place where the process can be discovered, where the projects are presented one by one, where it's a mix, it's an hybrid between a catalog and a process book. And mostly importantly, with the idea that can continue. and it can grow. So indeed, it's an open book, which is also something that reflects a bit the nature of the Bright Cityscape program, which is everything that we collected is indeed online, shareable, downloadable. And something peculiar of the program is the multitudes of voices, of disciplines, of participations from UPT, from FABER, from the different collaborations that were established within companies, but also the different disciplines of designers. So I think it's a good format for giving space to each of them. And another element, we kept the conversational aspect. The program was, it had central like this idea of conversation, not only between the two institutions, FABER and UPT, but also conversation between designers and experts, between designer and designers, conversation with the city, with the different spaces that we discovered, that we opened, and also conversations between different ideas of design, of different ideas of engaging with the reality. And therefore, we kept the format of conversation, and that is mostly because there are some new entry of the book. So there are sections which we interview almost every participant of the show. And the editorial team is composed by Oana, Nadim Botha, Bianca Schick, which collaborated with me closely along all the process, and myself. And it has all the participants. So that's also beautiful. The students are together in the same list of professionals, and so it's not a hierarchical book. The designer, yeah, I was going there. The graphic designer is Kristen Sprout, which also the graphic designer that made the entire identity of the program, and they coded entirely from scratch the platform too. So it's basically a teamwork, which also respects a lot the program. And yeah, and it's in English. And it's not finalized, so what we have here is a print test. It will be done in a couple of weeks and will be distributed. Thank you for presenting it.
Thank you for the delightful book, which being in publishing makes me very envious. And thank you also for, I felt a little bit like Bob Dylan in the clip while moving with the book. So I will start by giving the voice to the people that didn't present today, starting by maybe by this. And well, I would like to go to the ladies just left of me, and maybe start again with Martina, and ask you maybe to react on the presentations very quickly from your perspective on what has been told here, which is extremely diverse, so and extremely complicated to discuss.
So, as a general reflection, I think what was really beautiful, if I need to cross between the three presentations, it come to my attention the word engagement, and how, at least in my perception, design as a discipline that it's strongly connected with this idea of engaging with a context or in a reality or a specific architecture. And I think it was also within Norbert research, the concept of engagement was also really central, in the sense that an anthropological approach for understanding a context is absolutely fundamental in connection with a more numeric, statistical understanding of the context. And I think this is a lot to do with how to make a context accessible in a way. So how do you actually engage? Which kind of relation, no? This idea of design for creating relation, like relationality of the practice. And this is something that we experience ourselves. Like the main question was, how to pose design questions which relate to the context, but in the same time, they also have a potential to reach upon different scales of observation. So the concept of most of the time design projects are, the majority of the time, it's really about designing the right strategy to make a place or a building accessible. How do you make an event in such a abandoned building, for example? And this is an aspect of design that is not necessarily the most sexy one, because it's also unknown, invisible. But I think it's an important, I think it's what is behind this representation also, that what brings them together in a form, how do you create a context for research to be transformed or being shared or being passed on, then together with the most beautiful part, which is the project itself, how do you visualize, how do you, which format do you decide to, in order to make it public. So there are these two aspects that are, that I think came to me during the presentation, together all with the big visions and the idea of like, yeah, I think like this fundamental aspect of continue creating possibilities for activations of this practice of both design and architecture, but in the same time, how to engage it, like how to engage with. And within the program, and I think that there were many common denominators, I would say, within the three talks. The program tried to engage with the context, tried to open doors to spaces that are usually not accessible, tried to bridge disciplines, and still, even if they somehow we reached a result, like a series of exhibition, a book today, it still keep its energy up. It's not necessarily like the program is not ended, you know, like the questions are not necessarily solved. They are probably posed to the context.
Thank you. And I will now come, after all the designers have spoken, I will come to culture and the administration, and then to entrepreneurship, business. And I think I will start with Simona. I think that there's certainly a department in the City Hall for industry and for economy and something like that. And I'm sure that they have nothing to do with your department, which is culture. And how can we achieve to pass the corridor and to bring culture into industry and to link industry with culture for Timișoara, as they seem so completely different aspects? You can, yeah.
Well, you've approached the topic from very high perspectives, from a very high stakeholders. Indeed, it seems that are two worlds that yet doesn't connect. But coming back to your first question, what impressed me from the presentations was that despite indeed of a lot of crises that we are facing, including at the city level, there is still a lot of potential in terms of spaces, including in the city, and in terms of people. It doesn't take much to get the people together around spaces, around ideas, and to build communities. And coming back to your question about industry and culture, I think this kind of experiments helps in bridging these two worlds. We took the European Capital of Culture context as a context to experiment, to exchange ideas, but also to empower. Like 3 years ago, we really changed the paradigm of implementing the project. We shifted from the model of a hyper structure of implementation towards a decentralized model in which we empowered as many actors within the ecosystem as possible. And Bright Cityscapes is one of hundreds of projects that experiment collaboration in many ways with factories, with university, and builds examples and best practices that are shared with us on how to proceed further. So this is one example, and in this context it's very even powerful for me to get the feedback that our model really succeeded, decentralizing and empowering the actors of the ecosystem to really build up on their projects, to build up on their capacities, to collaborate. We just thought of the model and what are the drivers. And one of the drivers was this shared co-responsibility, and the other one emphasized on the people. So, and the feedback from the project is that these two mechanisms really worked. So, yeah, it's a process. Sector in general, that culture can transform a city, that they do have an interest in supporting culture in the broader sense, and in a more specific sense, like with this factory, I think that probably now they are more open to think on a longer term on how spaces like this and culture can meet and transform. And of course, we also have FABER as a best practice that we also as a city use it many times to prove how creative industries and culture can transform places, communities, and people.
Thank you. Joseph destroyed one of my questions because I had it noted here to talk about the heritage and actually about how to create heritage. But I'm still going to put it maybe as a kind of umbrella thing for the discussion and talk about how can we do to bring design into industry. And when I mean bringing design into industry, I mean what Norbert said about nurturing design and not just taking things that come from above, but also thinking about designing factories and bringing art into factories. It is true that we should think about, we are reusing as heritage the industry of the past, and what kind of industry should we doing or could we do to leave some heritage for our let's say, for our descendants to transform into cultural spaces, and I don't know. I will start with Mihaela. This is a big question, and I don't even expect you to try to answer it, but you had this experience of having an artist coming to a factory and disturbing things in the factory. So maybe you could tell us just a little things about this experience, and if it would be able to bring something new in the way of thinking about the factory in itself.
Yeah. As I told you in the break, I think this experience for us, it was like an egg with Kinder Surprises. And I think it was like this not only for us, but also for the artist Teofil, that it was in our factory, and also I think it was full of surprises also for the team from Bright Cityscape. And I'm telling this because, yes, what was clear for us as the beginning is that we don't know what kind of object it will be. But it wasn't very clear how the production process will be. and it wasn't very clear how are we going to communicate, because basically there are two different worlds. The artistic world, as Martina said earlier, dreaming, creative, needed time to think, what are I going to do? And then is coming the second world, the corporate, the business world, with fixed plans, deadlines, clear objectives. What are we going to do now, tomorrow, the next day? And these two worlds interfere in this project, and they have to adapt. I think this is the main word. Let's adapt. And I think what was important, and we succeed in this project, was the team, the collaborative team, the friendship that unite us and make us to believe that it is going to be a perfect object. And there is something, I don't know if you know. For us, Teofil at the beginning was a kind of craftsman. His works for us was something big, like tables, chairs. And he came to our factory where we develop and produce small objects. We are doing, the main product of us, for us, is the microliter syringes. Small things, teeny things. And the scrap that he had to use was very small. I think the biggest piece that he could use was something like this. And we asked, oh God, what is he going to do? After the first week, after Teofil make a lot of research in our factory, I asked him, Teofil, what are you going to do? Good question, Mihaela. I don't know. It's okay, Teofil. Go on, research more. After the almost 2 weeks, when actually his residency should be finished, I asked him again, Teofil, what are you going to do? Is it something beautiful? Oh, Mihaela, it will be, but I don't know what to do. Okay. I think he decided in the third week, in the third week. And he told us, I'm gonna do something that I never did it again. Uh-oh. What? A lamp. A lamp. With what? With your beautiful scrap. Okay, so he didn't make one lamp, he did two. Very beautiful for us. But, I remember that I asked him, why lamps? Because you inspire me to make this lamp. Because the connection between you, Hamilton team, the connection between you and me, Teofil Blande, inspire me to make this work, to make a lot of connection. And I don't know if you see his work, but are some objects with a lot of connection that not only Teofil worked at them, I think almost all the factory worked at them. And Teofil told me it was the hardest work for me and the easiest work in the same time. Because I didn't do anything. I just go to your colleague, the technical operator, and I told him, can you scrape here a little? I need this. Yes, I can do it. In how many days? 10 minutes. okay, we can do it. So yes, I think the designers, the artistic world can collaborate very well and can understand with the business world, the corporate world, if the, I don't know how to say it, if we are open-minded and if we are united with the same dream, to make something, to change something, and to show the world something beautiful. This is
Thank you, Mihaela.
a short experience.
I would really like to surprise you maybe and give the micro to the audience. So I guess some of you have questions that you would have liked to pose before. So we profit from this round table and I invite you to, it can be a question to several of the participants, it can be a question or a comment to one. It can be an attack if it's gentle, and please. So who would like to start and to put a question? Okay.
So I'm sitting in the audience, but so it's maybe fair I start. I would actually, I think how you started with Simona and Mihaela is really nice, and I would like to point at Norbert actually, because we immersed him into our world, bringing him into this project as some sort of a godfather. Basically, what he did is at the base of this entire program. But I'm really curious about his perspective on this collaboration. He just saw the exhibition for the first time today. So I'm really curious how our world looks from his perspective, because we have all been reading his words for so many months. So Norbert, what's your perspective on the program?
It was very surprising to see that actually the report was used. So I was up until today in this belief that what I was doing actually informs in some relevant way the exhibition, but obviously all the pieces were tightly linked, for my surprise, with the report, and I recognized words from the report reinterpreted completely. And it was certainly a challenge for me and also the team with whom I worked, that all new meetings met all new ideas that we have to do research. And from a short 40 pages, we came up with this report because there were always curiosities, but nonetheless, I was not directed. So we could have gone in any direction we wanted. It was probably the most surprising collaboration for an exhibition. I had an experience of 10 years in Cluj, working with the cultural independent sector, also very independent, but generally our reports are not really used for an exhibition.
Is there anybody who has gathered the courage? It's not frozen yet?
If not, I'd gladly pick
Yes,
up.
if I would have.
I was very struck, maybe, Norbert, if you would want to... I'm still trying to get my head around my own question, but it has something to do with scalability and the abstraction of science, which you then connect to people's lives, right, through anthropology. So one of the questions I was having while listening to you is this idea of scale, because you are also hinting at, for instance, the Bosch patents, not localized, but in Berlin, if I recall correctly. I would want to maybe ask you to extrapolate a little bit what you think are the consequences of the research that you have presented to us, and maybe even if there is even the potentiality to counter that narrative or not.
One of the way I was also taught to think in anthropology always in terms of strategy, tactics. And this is the logic much of the post-structuralist and architecture strongly and design fields that are strongly linked with this kind of, always a structure power structure, and there are the various types of tactics of subverting that as part of being not captured by capitalism and be capable of working within it. I'm currently not anymore paying attention to these types of tensions, and I found them that they are not actually guiding me because I worked a lot as activists also, as many of people here, and I think that kind of stuff doesn't help in any way setting the agenda, and generally does have to always connect the place with the global power of structures. And now I'm thinking not in terms of tactics, but in things of hijacking. Obviously now design is not an autonomous field in Timișoara, and that runs across all the exhibition. But to imagine that is to put the designers in the position and tensions that the architects are living now, always as a drama, which their clients, they do not understand them, they are stupid, and generally they are. And obviously they have this kind of fantasy about being capable of creating new objects from within the field. I think this is a more complicated game. If autonomy means that for the city, obviously that's a problem. And probably it's a more complicated game of rescaling in terms of startups, ecology of players that work together, and not that kind of autonomy, but to see culture only as a play ground where capitalism, local development, growth can create collaborative links and creative industries. I think it's a very problematic way to put it, very problematic. Probably here your experience in Rotterdam even adds to that. Or
Joseph, it seemed to me that you were relating a little bit to what Norbert said in his presentation in yours, so maybe you would like to comment a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that we emphasize and take pride in at the Design Academy, I was saying that one of the things that's a challenge for, I think, for myself as a creative director, but I think for everybody who works in the school, also for the heads of department, is to take this very strong legacy that positions the designer in a very specific way, in which the Design Academy was a pioneer, and has to grapple with that tradition and the ones that came before it, the more sort of industrially aligned idea of the designer, and somehow translate it into what the present needs. And of course, we're all very acutely aware of the urgencies that we all have in terms of demands from the design world, and or at least the need to revise the way that we think about design, because it can't be a consumption-based model anymore. So one of the things that we take a lot of, pay a lot of attention to at the Design Academy is this idea of designing design, trying to think about ways in which designers are going to rethink their own role in order to be socially useful in the future. And one of these, I think, is, and so this often means really like a radical departure from the product design model, which I think is something we've already been through many, many years ago. It's nothing new about that in schools in general, but I think specifically Design Academy. And now what we're looking at is, I think, an acceptance among many of our students that they will be actually working on projects that, a little bit kind of what Saskia was saying, that go beyond the idea of singular authorship, that are part of a much larger system, and that are capable, find themselves comfortable operating within an environment of extreme complexity like the one that Norbert has been sketching out throughout the course of the evening. And this is, I mean, it's such a fundamental shift that it leaves everything that has, I think all of the kind of past revolutions in design completely in the shadows. This is a fundamentally different idea of the designer, where designers are thinking about energy footprints, they're thinking about material flows, they're thinking about the production of social conditions, or most of these things, I would say, maybe none of these things has a specifically material dimension in terms of form, but have very significant material consequences in other ways. And this is quite something that's quite difficult to wrap one's head around in terms of kind of looking for an image of what is the designer of the future going to be producing. It's quite difficult to dislodge the chair that we're all sitting on from that position, but it's something that's happening. And I think that the exhibition that Martina has put together here, it's not an exhibition, it's much more than that. It's I don't know, you could say almost a manifesto for the future designer, which is a collaborative engagement with all sorts of levels of society, at all sorts of different levels, from the anthropological and sociological and the ethnographic all the way through to the artistic. That is, I think, what we are going to be seeing coming out of design schools in the future, and I think I see extremely fertile ground for that. I think also all the conversations we've had, all the contributions this evening point towards there being a very fertile moment here in Timișoara, where something like this could be built on. And I think that taking that visionary legacy of the Sigma Group, which was capable of producing forms that were of a power that I've rarely seen anywhere else, and kind of stitching that into the needs that are from the kind of a society that you described, that is in, okay, it's starting from a level of what could be described as disadvantage in terms of material wealth, but that is growing very rapidly at a much faster pace, as you told us, than the rest of Europe, and making that into this a paradigm for the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And that's, I think, where all of these Theophile and all of the crazy people that Martina has thrown at you could be, myself included, I put myself squarely in that category, could be something that leaves a mark that lasts for generations. They're not just decades, but really for generations. So I hope it's something that will really go forwards more and more strongly.
Any of the Timișoara architects? I don't know why that happens. Is there any of you that would like to intervene? Please, so please just say your name and your profession.
Profession is IT, not an architect. Valentin Mureșan is my name. So I was actually going to ask a question about how do you bridge the future of industry, which is deep tech, you know, all this generative AI, quantum computing, biotechnology, and so on. And actually, you answered already my question: how would you bridge this deep tech new industry with your design field? But to put it more in a context, so far for industry, there was this industrial sort of design, which was giving a shape or a kind of artistical view, let's say, of what you're selling. You know, that was something that you could patent somehow and, you know, call it original, unique, and so on and so forth. So how do you see this shifting in the new world where there is so much information, spam, generated by, you know, bots beyond the, you know, something that humans can actually digest? So where do you see this industrial design moving forward with the new technologies, the new industry?
I mean, I think that you pointed at precisely the thing that is behind, that is accelerating the shift away from the accepted, the the sort of commonly understood role of the designer is that there is an absolute overabundance of, I mean, the production of an image and the production of a form is something that we can now take for granted as being almost without value. I'm saying that in a slightly polemical, provocative way. I don't completely believe it, but I think that the idea that one can make a living or at least make oneself socially useful simply by having a sort of an epiphany of, a formal epiphany is something that is completely behind us. Because it's something that has been completely devalued by the ability to automate that process. And so what we're left with is instead which can go two ways. It can either be a rather sort of sad and slightly possibly disappointing moment in the history of human culture, or it can be a moment of acceleration of intelligence, if we, depending on how we handle it. It could be a moment where the role of the curator, somebody who has an idea that is expressed through things that are selected from an abundant available, an abundance of sources, becomes more important. It's about having an idea and finding through what is available, the way of demonstrating that idea. And I think that that is probably a more I think looking to the role of the designer as someone who is understanding what is important, being able to kind of put a finger on what is, distinguish between what's important and what's not important, is going to be all the more important, all the more necessary and critical in this age of overabundance. But that's a very, very long conversation that I don't want to go completely down that rabbit hole, or you won't be able to pull me out for the next hour. So,
is there any question? Because this, I think, should be the last, if there is any. But don't be shy. Okay. Then I would like to maybe stress out, maybe we should have done this at the beginning of the discussion. There's the problem that we have this discussion in English. And in English, design means a lot of things. In all our other languages, design means something is a discipline that deals with designing objects or interior design and so on. But designing means also, I don't know, progettare, making a project for something. And architects design buildings, for instance. So I wonder if everything that Joseph and Saskia said only relates to designers or also relate to architecture. In this respect.
Maybe I can pick up on it because I dare go even further, that I see quite even an existential crisis on the horizon. That maybe draws on your point also, that if accelerating all these processes decentralizes also the human to a certain extent, right? So how do we then give meaning to our lives? I know these are large questions. So if you say design, in German you would say Dasein, how to really sit with, and I don't want to go all into the philosophy of that word, but I do really believe that we are at a moment where we have to reflect on who we are and how we are. And I don't want to call that a design challenge necessarily, but I think we are facing these questions. How do we relate to our environment, to people we do not know yet, to value life in the broadest sense of the word, or even revalue it, not as something that you use or extrapolate, but that you build upon and that can grow. So this is something that I find very challenging for us as humans. How to rehumanize ourselves, nearly. It's maybe not it's a grand, bold statement, but for years we thought we were in the center of everything. Well, we have to acknowledge that we might not be. And what kind of conversation will that bring?
Well, so is there any of you who has to say the last final point to this, or then we leave it to Saskia? who has already said it, and maybe we can conclude this conversation. Thanks a lot and thanks a lot to the audience for your presence and again your patience. And see you as soon as possible in Timișoara, I hope. Oana?
Thank you so much. Since we are at the end, I would really like to express my gratitude, first of all, to all of you, but especially actually to Simona and her team, the team of the City Hall, and also the team of the Center for Project, the team of the City Council, because I think the fact that we have this title this year, as I said in many times, it's something really important here locally. It brought us all together. For us, for FABER, it gave us the courage to make FABER, and I think this courage is something that also many other participants to this big story received with this title. So I'm really grateful we had this chance in Timișoara this year. I'm also grateful that we were able to build this project in a partnership and not alone. And I would like to invite my partner, Loredana, here with me, and thank her also, because we made it through a very difficult year, a very ambitious program. Looking back, a research, looking back, we were a bit crazy. So thank you so much. I would also like to thank my team. They are there, they are fantastic. I would like to invite them here as well. Come on. Claudia, Carola, Diana, Mehi, Ufo, Lucian, Cristina. Also Cristian Blidariu is here, Mihaela from our team. You should join us. Where is Nicu? Nick. Yeah, so this is just a part of us, illustrating again both how ambitious we were at the beginning and maybe how much collaboration it took to be here today. I also need to thank our funding authorities, which is the Center of Projects, but also the Order of Architects, Flex Foundation and Alber Foundation, and also our sponsors, Hamilton, AZUR, thank you very much also for hosting us tonight. Anișoara, I see you're still here with us, thank you so much. But also Continental, Flex, Drexelmeier, Nokia. Did I forget anyone? I don't know. Thank you very much to all of you. It was a great privilege for us to build this together. I think I should leave some words to you as well.
Thank you. I don't know if there are much to say now, except that we still need some time to process all this, I think. And this was a highly intense year for Timișoara and for the cultural operators that actually enrolled in this crazy journey of building big projects for the usual type of cultural project that we are doing in other years. And all this effort, I think, should be distilled, and we should learn from it and process maybe even the years after the results that we have here. I think that for all of us, it was such a speed moment that we still need to understand. And the results, I'm very glad that the results of this project are online, are accessible, and can be further accessed and can be further developed. And I think also that this step of building this project between the Politehnica University of Timișoara and FABER should be an example to follow in order to bring institutions closer together. Thank you all. Have a great evening.